powerless. That's all the two of them felt. Powerless. And they were constantly reminded of it. But it wasn't just them. No, not at all. You know why? Because, well, there were a lot of people on that planet who got told either implicitly or explicitly that, they didn't matter. They didn't have a say, or, they didn't have the right, or, they just didn't have any power. Now, a lot of you are going to be from this planet, and a lot of you are going to see the deeper levels of these stories. However, some of you won't, though. But that's okay. That's expected, right? So, anyways, while these boys did feel powerless, they were, surely the most dominant on your Earth, and easily two of the most formidable people in the multiverse. But they didn't know, and probably never will. I know, this all might seem kind of confusing, so let me try my best to clear some stuff up. All right. You see, I've grown quite fond of these boys over the years. The only thing that saddens me is I don't know their names. For nearly a decade, I tried to figure it out. I simply refer to them as the crafter and the composer. Their story starts in 2018. See, the boys had been friends for some time, about 3 years. From what I've heard, they met in middle school, but that was before I came to be. You see, in high school, their powers actually manifested. The ability had always been there from birth, but it wasn't until they were older that they could actually do something with it. If I remember correctly, it was their freshman year of high school. They just finished spring break, and the crafter was sitting in his history class. In his class, they were learning about the civil rights movement in the 60s. Slowly, the crafter's mind started to drift. He was enraged at all that his people had to go through, all that they did for the country through force, only to be freed and treated like trash. And it was still going on then, just in a different form. It was a seemingly never-ending battle. His mind drifted to the fictional content he loved to consume. All the heroes that saved the day and fought for good. Then he put himself in their shoes. Well, who would he fight for? Well, that was easy. He'd fight for people who needed help. At the time, in his still maturing mind, that was black people. His people. He pictured himself wielding a magical sword or controlling the elements to protect those in need. Also around this time, the composer was in band class, preparing for the, the Pops concert. A time where the music department performs pieces other than classical or jazz. You see, the band that he was in had a spy theme to it. So the composer picked up his trumpet and got lost in the music and his mind. Kind of something like this. So, he pictured the adventures along the way. The friends, the lovers, the betrayals, everything. The composer was, tired of a dull life, so he just wanted something fun for once. And he knew that there were people or entire nations that needed help. He just wanted to be the ones, to do something. Because he himself, he just wanted to be a hero for the public. Now, after listening and reading to all that, this was only the beginning. You see, the real manifestation of their power happened in 2020. A year that, many of you will all truly remember forever. Everywhere the two looked, something bad was happening. And being inside due to the lockdown, social media, it boomed. The composer and the crafter, they got to see what other people thought like. They saw the ignorance, they saw the malice, and the bigotry of the world. And all it did was just anger them. And it trapped them in their heads even more. Every superhero or villain in comics or movies had some motive or, tragic backstory. But for a lot of them, it was for personal reasons. Something happened to them specifically. It was rarely because of a community attack or some sort of injustice. The closest to that was, we need to stop crime, which, it's fine, but the boys thought it would be more realistic or impactful if heroes reflected the ones who needed the most in the real world. I mean, the mainstream stuff didn't really portray the underrepresented groups very well. For example, the women were helpless, the black people were always compliant, and if they weren't, well, they were a villain. There weren't many Asian or Latino or LGBT characters, at least not the main ones. While there were some serious social issues going on, the two were constantly reminded of something every time they watched a superhero film. Even in fiction, your kind isn't wanted. So, ideas swirled through their minds, more ideas of what heroes should look like and do. Different struggles for different people. Who are these heroes fighting for? Oh, what are they fighting for? Who is the villain? Are they really the villain? Or are they misunderstood? Can a hero be a villain? Yes! The characters on the screen were fake, but they had the potential to make truly heroic impacts on real people. So that's what the crafter and the composer, that's what they wanted to do. Now, let's get to explaining who I am. You see, I was created in an empty space with just one thing to observe, one universe. The one that the crafter and the composer lived in, and the one many of you live in as well. I call this the Overse. O for original. I was born just moments before the 2018 event that sparked the infernal-like change of the Omniverse. I was self-aware. I knew everything about the crafter and the composer, other than their names. I knew I had functions, and I knew that something was about to happen, but a lot of things didn't make sense to me. I mean, I knew I could turn invisible, and travel from universe to universe, and fly, and, other things, etc., but I couldn't comprehend what that even meant. Oh, sorry, to make it easier for you guys to understand. Okay, imagine a traveler from the future gives you a rock and say, don't use its power yet. You have a pretty cool rock, that can do cool things, but you just don't know why you have it. That's what I felt like for years after my birth. While all this left me baffled, the most confusing thing to me was this glowing journal that followed me wherever I went. The pages and covers were empty. Throughout the pandemic, these creative young minds crafted different characters and settings in order to escape the harsh reality in their world. As I mentioned before, the boys had always had their abilities, but to them and their close ones, it was just an active imagination. But, as they matured, their thoughts went from characters and traits to full worlds and what people saw as plot lines. Well, you see, these plot lines are real lives that they created. That void with only the Overse saw a burst of life in 2020. At first it was just a planet, then it became a solar system, then a galaxy. And everything just kept expanding and expanding and expanding until an entire multiverse came into existence within a matter of months. I saw that entire thing unfold before my very eyes. You know how much that hurt my eyes? Sorry, anyways. The journal that followed me around began to fill with people's stories. A group of teens on Earth who had a bloodline of fierce warriors with mystical abilities. The 4 strangers from the Linton solar system. There were many more, a lot from Earth, I might add. A few years after this, the words "otherworldly miracles" engraved itself on the bright golden journal cover. A pen appeared to me, and as soon as I touched it, I knew what I needed to do. I knew who I was. I am the one who writes in the cosmic journal that keeps a record of everything that happens in the multiverse. I am the one who sees and hears everything in real time. I am the protector of stories, the one entrusted with this book. I am the keeper. Now, this next bit is important because it will explain a lot to those who are, still confused. So, prepare for this. You live on a planet, and that planet is in a solar system full of other planets. That solar system is in a galaxy full of other solar systems, and, so on. On a larger scale, think of the multiverse as an infinite forest where each planet is a universe. There are countless trees and bushes and shrubs and blades of grass, but none are identical. And the crafter and the composer are the ones who keep planting trees and throwing out seeds. So, I am the person who watches the growth of the forest. The Omniverse is full of every multiverse. The Omniverse will be an entire collection of ecosystems. There are some forests, there are some oceans, there are some deserts, there are some grasslands. All of these multiverses are vast and different. If that doesn't make sense, then just check a book or the internet or however you obtain information, I don't care. But next, we have Paramounts. A Paramount is an event that is considered necessary or important. An event that changes the course of the universe or multiverse. Paramount beings are those who have what many call doppelgangers in other universes. But unlike the doppelgangers you may have heard of, these ones don't look exactly alike. However, the makeup of their souls are identical. For example, a 78-year-old librarian with no special abilities could be considered a Paramount being because, they have the same soul makeup as a 24-year-old, sorcerer in a different universe, of course. In this multiverse, if someone kept a journal on their life during a Paramount, it would go into the journal as they wrote. My purpose is to make sure every Paramount is written in this journal. So, if a Paramount being doesn't take an account, I will write it. All Paramount being stories, they're put into Otherworldly miracles. To recap, I am a floating entity that can see everything the entire multiverse created by the crafter and the composer. Now, the crafter and the composer are two young men who live on Earth in the O-verse. They have the ability to create universes using their own imagination, though they aren't aware of this power. Since 2018, other universes have joined the O-verse existence. Otherworldly Miracles is a journal that contains every single Paramount written by a Paramount being. Now, if a Paramount isn't written by a Paramount being, I write it. Just, think of me as a cleanup person. If a story is missed, then I'll take care of it. You see, it is part of my mission to make this available to every planet in the multiverse regarding lives that aren't even theirs. Now, you may believe that this is all fiction, but I can assure you this is real life somewhere in the multiverse. Because of how time runs for me, some of the stories that you hear, they're gonna happen to you. But they just haven't happened yet. So, if you hear something familiar or things start to line up, well, just know you may be listening to your fate. So, whether you believe this or not, well, that's up to you. Nevertheless, I invite you on this journey. Welcome to the presentation of Otherworldly Miracles.